Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Elder Scrolls online build video with me, Sherman. Today guys, we're going to be taking a look at a build that is really dear to my heart because it's something I do play on live, and I have slowly started making adjustments to it to match this build because it works so good. Now this is a roleplay build like any of my other roleplay builds. It is made for overland, delves, public dungeons, and dungeons themselves, along with world bosses. It's pretty much made for the base game and a little bit more. This build can play in arenas, it can play in dungeons, like I said, it can do the story content, it can pretty much play everything. Except for trials. I would not play this in trials because it just wouldn't be welcome. And it could be with the right adjustments, but I'm not going to do that. You guys know that. So, let's get into it. This is the New Moon Monk. So, taking a look at the build, we are a Khajiit Templar. Now, this build is based on the Khajiit monk character that you meet in the storyline and elsewhere. And I love the idea of that character, and I wanted to play something similar, so I made something like it. This build is about group support, group utility, resource, like giving resources out like they're candy. It's really good for what it does, and it's really good that it's a Khajiit. Khajiits are really good right now because they play into the hybrid play style so well, and this is a hybrid build, so it really has that functionality of being a hybrid character that can play in both group content and solo content either way. So we have 14 into Magicka, 50 into Stamina. This gives us 26,780 max Magicka with 26,279 max health, 27,530 max Stamina. Our mag recovery is coming in at 1328 unbuffed. Stamina is coming in at 1017 unbuffed. And you can see our weapon and spell damage is identical. Our spell and weapon crit is identical. And then we have high spell and high physical penetration. This is why this build can play overland content so well, and then when it gets into dungeons, it can play even better. In small groups, this build is highly powerful. And I'll get to why when we get to the gear and the skills, but I do want to just point that out now. We also have a 14,988, almost 15k spell resist with a almost 12, I would say, 11k physical, but pretty close to 12, which is nice. You do get a lot of survivability because you buff your resistance as well. Moving on, we have Major Prophecy, Major Savagery, Minor Fortitude, Minor Intellect, and Minor Endurance at all times. We also have the Thief Mundus Stone for the higher crit chance, and we also use Tri-Stat Food or Dual Stat Food that gives us Magicka and Stamina. So, moving on to the gear and food and potions. Starting with food and potions, I'm going to close this down. Quick slots. The best food you can use for this build is going to be Tri-Stat Food because it gives you max health, magic, and stamina, and this is just going to help with your survivability. It's going to help with your overall stat pools, and it's going to make the content feel a lot easier when you're playing by yourself. You can use the dual stat food when you're running dungeons, which is what I would highly recommend because you don't need as much health because you have a tank, you have 2 damage dealers, and you're going to be the healer. So dual stat food works really good for that. When it comes to potions, tri-stat pots are the best. Or tri-pots, the ones that give you health, magic, and stamina back with the extra major intellect, major endurance, and major fortitude, because you already get the minor stuff, so getting the major on top of it helps a lot, and it just works really well. You can use the warrior power pots if you want to go more stamina based when you're doing overland stuff where you want more stamina DPS. You can use these. If you're going for more support and healing, I would suggest the spell power pots, especially if you're doing things like Craglorn instances or the Craglorn group content. If you're playing public dungeons with like 2 or 3 people, this power pot is going to be better for you for the fact of support. It's going to increase your spell damage. It's going to, you know, you're not worried about the major prophecy and major savagery because you already have it, but you're going to get that higher spell damage, which can play to your advantage in that situation. I would also suggest using these in dungeons, but you want all 3 stats recovering, so it's better to go with the tri-stat. Alright, starting with sets now. Now this is where things get really interesting for this build, because it's not a build that you're going to see the atypical support type sets. This build is primarily about giving resources to your allies so they can stay doing what they need to do, which is damage or tanking, and you can just feed them resources. So our first set is the Sentinel of Rakuzma set. This is an amazing set. 1, it increases your healing done by 4%. That's on the 1 piece. The 2 piece, when you heal yourself or an ally, you summon a Dwemer spider that heals for X amount of health and restores magic and stamina to you and your allies within 5 meters. And it doesn't scale off anything. It's just a flat rate. But it lasts for 8 seconds, and it can be reapplied or resummoned every 15 seconds. Now, I told you guys before how these things work. So the cooldown of the item starts when you activate. So when the activation of the spider appears, that's when the 15-second cooldown starts. The 8-second timer starts then as well. So when the 8 seconds ends, you have 7 seconds before this could be resummoned. And it works out really well in group play. You're giving them magicka, you're giving them stamina, and you're giving, you know, a heal, and you're going to be right in it anyway, so you're going to be getting those resources as well. Next up, the 5 body pieces is the Treasure Hunter. Treasure Hunter, hands down. Treasure Hunter, I forget the other set, there's a medium version of it, but it has stamina on it and 2 crit chance with the weapon damage and the spell damage, just like this has for the 2-piece max magicka, 3 and 4-piece crit chance, and then the 5-piece adds extra weapon and spell damage. And then the extra 5-piece adds major prophecy and savagery, increasing your weapon and spell crit by 12%. This is excellent, because even though you're not running a resto staff with this build, you're gonna be able to give those resources, or get those benefits of the higher crit chance, which is going to allow your heals to hit harder more often. So you're going to be able to crit heal your group easier. A lot of people say you don't need to crit heal to be a healer. Crit healing with this build works best. Trust me. Alright, moving on to the next set, and this is where things get really cool. This is the source feed of resource sets. A lot of people say Sentinels is really good for giving resources. No. Sentinels is good. This is better. And that is the Lamia's set. Lamia's song set drops in, I forget the name of the instance, but it's one that deals with a bunch of the serpent people. It's a really good set. The 2-piece adds max magicka, 3-piece magic recovery, 4-piece adds more max magicka, and the 5-piece. When you use an ultimate ability, you and your group members within 20 meters of you are healed for 29 health and 25 stamina and magicka per point of ultimate cost. So, a 250 point ultimate, like Warhorn, if you have 250 ultimate to use it, is going to give 7,250 health, 6,250 stamina and magicka to your allies. That quick. They don't even have to be within a certain radius. They have to be within 20 meters of you, and if you're playing a dungeon, they're going to be. So this is just going to allow you to pop that ultimate, give those resources to your group, and your group's going to be able to sustain better in that situation. Your tank's not going to have to worry about popping a potion or worry about it, because their stamina is going to come back in a big chunk. And you're going to be able to do this pretty much almost all the time. You're going to be able to keep this going, I would say, every 15 to 20 seconds in a dungeon. And when you're doing a boss encounter, the first 15 seconds are not as important as the last 15 seconds of the fight. Getting that big boost of resources in that last 15 seconds so you can do all your executes and everything else, and you can spam them better. This helps so much. Now, a lot of people are going to say, what about weapon spell damage buffs, things like that? That does help. So you could swap this out for something like Spell Power Cure. If you have Olarim, you could switch it out for Olarim, because you're going to have a lot of AoE abilities, which are going to be able to help you apply those benefits. Or ground area effect target stuff. You're going to be able to do that, and you're going to be able to give your group the buff to weapon and spell damage. And also using Spell Power Cure, you're going to be overhealing people all the time, so you'll be able to keep that up pretty much indefinitely. So either way you can go with that, but I find the Lamia set to be much better, especially for starting players. New players coming in the game don't understand resource management as well as a veteran player. Being able to give them resources is going to help them more than giving them weapon and spell damage. So you could do this in the beginning to give your group resources, and then switch over to Olarim or Spell Power Cure to give your group that weapon, that major courage, which is going to boost their weapon and spell damage, and it's also going to boost yours. So it's a benefit either way. Alright, now that I've shown you guys the gear and stuff, let's go over traits and enchants, starting with the monster set head, the chest, and the legs. So the head, we're going with the Tri-Stats Reinforce because it is a heavy helm. This is going to give you, with the Tri-Stats, it's going to give you more resources towards your stamina and magicka. The smaller, the chest and the legs, we're going Invigorating to give you more recovery, so you can sustain better with your magicka and stamina. And we're also going to go with the Tri-Stats there as well, so you get those higher resource pools. And the smaller pieces, we're going to go with Divines. This is going to increase the effect of your Monostone, which is the Thief Monostone, which actually is going to give you about an 8% crit chance with this, which is really good when you are already using other things to give you more crit chance. So really works out to your advantage. And then we're going to go 2 stamina enchants and 2 magicka enchants. Now, a lot of people will think that using Tri-Stats across the board on every piece of gear is going to be better. But when you do the math and you calculate how much you get, magicka, stamina, health, all that kind of stuff, it's better to go 3 Tri-Stats on the body, on the helm, chest, and legs, with the smaller pieces being prime, like flat stats. This is actually going to give you more resources overall. In the Tri-Stat in a small piece, you're going to get like 100 and something max stats. And even if you have 4 pieces, it doesn't even add up to the 600 and something or 700 and something you're going to get between 2. So it's better to go with the 2 stats like this for the overall stat purpose. Now, moving on to the jewelry. We are running 2 Tri-Rune rings like a lot of my builds do, and this is primarily to help you sustain, keep your resource pools higher. Especially on a hybrid, you want your resource pools higher because you can't reach the same values as somebody who plays a pure stamina or pure magicka, but you can get high values. 27k, 26k, that's about as high as you're going to get with any hybrid build, unless you're using like the dual stat food, which is going to give you 28k and 27k. And that's a greater benefit, but at the same time, using that dual stat food, you do lose health. So using the Tri-Stat food, you get all 3 stats, and it keeps you at a more survivable rate, especially with the lower resistances and being in 5 pieces of light armor. Because you are in 5 pieces of light armor, with 1 medium, 1 heavy. So the Tri-Stats are going to really play into that and help you out. Now on these 2 different rings, you're going to notice I have 1 weapon damage enchant and 1 spell damage enchant. The reason for this is to keep your spell and weapon damage equalized. You want to keep them as equal as possible, as much as possible. And the reason for that is so that this way you can use either your stamina heals or your magicka heals, and they're going to get the same benefit from the equal weapon and spell damage. Moving on to the necklace, we are using a try recovery. This is going to give you health, magicka, stamina recovery. You are a Khajiit, so you also get health, stamina, magic recovery. And this plays into that really well, and it plays to the strengths of the Khajiit with their recovery rates. So this is why you can reach these really high recoveries. But you got to also look, Lamia's also gives you extra mag recovery. That's why our mag recovery is higher than our stamina recovery. So we're going to go with that. We're going to use an infused trait to make it that 134 on each recovery rate. Moving on to weapons, and this is where things get a little interesting. You can change this to your own liking, but this works, what I find to work best for me. Now remember, you have 5,000 penetration already, but what if you could boost it by another 1,000? And that's what we're going to do. With the front bar, first weapon, we're going to use an infused Crusher enchant. An infused enchant, or a Crusher enchant with an infused trait. The infused trait is going to allow us to keep this Crusher up more effectively with any damage we do with our weapons on the front bar. So we're going to be doing a lot of light attacks. We're going to be doing a lot of heavy attacks. And this is going to allow us to get those bigger damage numbers. But it's also going to help us kill things faster in dungeons, which is going to be helpful to the group. And that's why we're going with this. Now, you can switch this to like a fire staff or an ice staff if you want to. Same thing with a back bar. You can switch a back bar to a resto staff if you want to. I would suggest not, because this build is designed to work with dual wield on both bars. Alright, offhand we are using an infused weapon as well with the magic damage enchant that gives us restores 230 magicka, and that will happen every 3 seconds. So every 3 seconds you will get a return of magicka, which is going to help you and your group immensely with you sustaining for healing and other things. Next up, back bar sword. And you're going to notice I use a sword and dagger combo. The reason for this, using a sword is going to enhance your weapon and spell damage, and your dagger is going to increase your crit chance by 5%. That's why we're sitting at 46% crit on both spell and weapon with this. Is because we're running the sword and dagger combo. And you want to do this on both bars. Now, the way I made it look is use 2 swords. That's just cosmetic, but it works out really well in the end with this setup. So the next back bar, we're using an infused weakening enchant. Now, you guys are going to say, what? The reason for the weakening infused back bar is because we have a skill that we're going to be keeping active, which is going to basically keep this applied to any enemies we fight within a 5-meter radius all the time. And we're going to be able to keep this up indefinitely on the enemies. Reducing their weapon and spell damage reduces their damage that they do to your group. And this can be applied to even bosses, which is good. And then in our offhand, we're using also another infused weapon, but this one is going to have weapon and spell damage. It's a weapon damage enchant, so this increases both your weapon and spell damage by 226 for 5 seconds. Now, your spell damage will be higher than your weapon damage, which is fine. But, sorry, that happened. But it's going to help out a lot in the long run. Because of the fact that increasing your weapon and spell damage, not only does this increase your damage potential, it increases your healing potential as well. So, even though it's just a small amount, that small amount is really good for you. Because it does, like I said, it increases your healing and it increases your damage. So it's going to make the dungeon run smoother. It's going to make that arena run smoother. And to be honest, this build works in any dungeon or arena. Any difficulty, it doesn't matter. It works that good. So really good setup here with the dagger sword combo, with the sets and how they benefit and play off of each other. Like the sentinels giving resources in small increments, with you being able to drop an ultimate and giving mass resources back. Sustain doesn't become a big issue with this build. It's taking care of, you take care of most of your group's sustain by doing this stuff, which is really crazy. All right, now we're going to move on to skills. And I will say this: when it comes to skills, because I haven't been doing this in the last few videos. I've had people ask me what passives should I unlock. Unlock all of the passives you get for any skill line you use. So if you're using your class skills, unlock all their passives. The reason for this: all your passives will play to your benefits. And I'm going to talk about a little bit more about passives real quick, just to prove why. So let's talk about the Adric skill line. Why do you want this? Well, one, piercing spear. This increases your critical damage. You're also a Khajiit, so you get 12% critical damage and critical healing. So you're going to get 22% critical damage on top of the 100% you already get. So you're going to have a 22% critical damage on your front bar. On your back bar, you're going to have a 112% increase to your healing done. See the difference? You're increasing your damage on the front bar, back bar, you're increasing just your healing. Because you don't need that extra critical damage on the back bar because you're not doing a lot of damage from there. You're doing most of your heals from there. Spear wall, also really good. Gain minor protection for 6 seconds, reducing your damage taken whenever you activate an Adric Spear ability. You have 2 Adric Spear abilities on your front bar. This is going to allow you to get that minor protection, which is going to reduce your damage taken by 5%. This allows you to stay on the front lines and fight with your group more effectively. Then you have things like Burning Light, which increases the damage of your Adric. Whenever you deal damage with an Adric Spear ability 4 times in rapid succession, you deal extra damage, both magic or physical. In this case, you're going to do more physical damage because your stamina is higher. So even this, your luminous shards are going to do more damage because the Burning Light will tick in succession. Your biting jabs deals damage over time in rapid succession. So you're going to get the Burning Light to proc from both of those. Balanced Warrior increases your weapon and spell damage by 6%, and it also gives you 1,320 extra physical and spell resist. Gives you greater survivability in a small way, but enough to make a difference. When you look at the Dawn's Wrath tree, you have an ability from Dawn's Wrath on your front bar. This is going to give you the Enduring Rays. Whenever you increase the duration of your Sunfire, Eclipse, Solar Flare, or Nova abilities by 2 seconds. Well, guess what? The ability you're using is Solar Flare. It's a morph of it, and this is going to give you an extra 2 seconds on that skill, so it stays up longer. Then you have Prism, where when casting a Dawn's Wrath ability while in combat generates 3 ultimate, and this effect can occur every 6 seconds. You will be applying that ability every 10 seconds, so this will go off and you'll get 3 ultimate really fast. You also have Illuminate, which casting a Dawn Wraith ability grants you and your group minor sorcery for 20 seconds, increasing spell damage by 10%. This is where you're going to be able to increase your spell damage, which is not only going to increase your spell damage abilities, but your spell healing abilities. And then Restoring Spirit reduces the cost of your health, magicka, stamina, ultimate cost by 5%. So all your abilities cost 5% less, and you're in light armor, so all your magicka abilities are costing less. Restoring Light. Mending increases the effectiveness of your heals from Restoring Light abilities by up to 12% in proportion to the severity of a target's wounds, so you can heal more effectively. Sacred Ground, whenever you cast your extended ritual, your radiant, your restoring aura, or your channeled focus, you give yourself a buff to your healing, and it says, and up to 4 seconds after leaving them, you gain minor mending, increasing your healing done by 8%. So while this is active, or this is active, you are going to get 8% minor mending, which is going to heal your group for more. You have Light Weaving. This one, when you heal an ally under 50% health with Restoring Light ability, you grant them 2 ultimate. While you're channeling Rite of Passage, you gain 3,300 physical and spell resistance. You're not really using that ability because it's the ultimate up here, but you could if you wanted to, and you could get that 3,300 extra physical and spell resistance. This just puts you at cap, and you're not going to get hurt really bad. Master Ritualist increases your resurrection speed by 20%, and resurrected allies return with 100% more health. Gives you a 50% chance to fill an empty soul gem after each successful resurrection. You're never going to run out of soul gems, ever. Trust me, this thing's going to keep them all filled all the time. So you're going to have an excessive amount of soul gems. And that's why you want to unlock your passives, is because they give you benefits across any skill you use from your class. So it's either going to affect the skill line you're in, or it's going to affect the skills across the board more effectively. So that's why you want to make sure you unlock this stuff. So now let's talk about the skills we have on our bar. So starting with our first skill, we have Biting Jabs. This is just here for the purpose of helping clear trash in dungeons. It's here for you to do DPS to the boss. It's your spammable. While you're doing this, you're going to be keeping up AoE heals and AoE damage. And this is just the thing you're going to use to spam the rest of your skills. So, works really good in your advantage. It also reduces movement speed. It does damage up front, damage over time. It's really powerful. I mean, come on. You can't get anything better than this besides the dual will ability, and this one works better. Next up, we have Luminous Shards. This does damage when it impacts. It does damage every second for 10 seconds, and this does scale off your higher weapon or spell damage, or higher spell damage, so the more spell damage you have, the more damage this deals. And it is also a synergy that restores resources. Remember, like I said, this thing's all about restoring resources to your group. This thing does it in spades. Next ability we have on our bar is Solar Barrage. Another great ability. It deals damage every 2 seconds for 10 seconds. While active, you gain Empower, increasing your damage done with light and heavy attacks. Remember when I said you're going to do a lot of light and heavy attacks? You have a rotation with this. But you also play this build very similar to how you would play a tank or a healer. It's about act and react. So you're going to do your rotation while acting and reacting with heals. And it's going to help you, like, do this, go into a light attack, do this, go into light attack, recast this, go into a light attack, cast this, go back to here, do this once, light attack, and then swap bars. It works out really well. Next skill we have on our bar is the Echoing Vigor. Now, this is a PvP skill, so you do have to do Battlegrounds and Arenas to get it. And Battlegrounds is the easiest place to get these skills unlocked, and it's the first skill you unlock. And what it does is you let loose a battle cry, instilling you and your group, your allies, with resolve and healing for 14,000 health over 10 seconds. That is a huge amount of health coming back over 10 seconds. It is really good. So, really good skill. And when you get the higher weapon and spell damage, or higher weapon damage, it actually increases this heal even more. More max stamina increases the heal even more. So, really good for you and your group. Moving on to the next ability on our bar, this is our group. This is where we get our minor intellect, minor all that stuff. And that is Radiant Aura. And when you use this, it costs nothing. So you can cast this as much as you want. It's a 28-meter radius around you, and it lasts 20 seconds. And what it does is it applies Magic of Steel to every target. So any target hit... So if you hit with an AoE, one of those targets is going to give you Magicka back. And it doesn't matter which one you hit. Any of them. He's going to give you Magicka back every second when you deal damage to him. So this is really powerful. It can only give you Magicka back every second, but the fact that it also gives you the Minor Fortitude, Minor Endurance, and Minor Intellect, which increases health, stamina, and magic recovery by 15%, this is going to help you in the long run. Next skill we have is Solar Prison. Now this is an amazing skill. You call down an orb of light, it crashes into the ground, and within a 28-meter radius from it, you have a 28-meter radius, you can cast this, and an 8-meter radius around it, around the orb, where people will take damage every second for 10 seconds, and they're afflicted with Major Maim, reducing their damage done by 10%. Now remember, you also have on your back bar a skill or a on your back bar weapon, you have a thing that does weakening, which reduces their damage done by 258, their weapon and spell damage by 258, which applies to all the things they do. So this even works in PvE and PvP, but we're using it for PvE. On top of that, it's a synergy. An ally can near the fragment can activate the Gravity Crush synergy, dealing 14,000 magic damage to all enemies in the area and stunning them for 5 seconds. And it costs you 237 ultimate. So guess what happens when you cast this? You heal your group and you give them resources. Moving on to the back bar, first ability we have is Breath of Life. Now, Breath of Life is going to be your main power heal. This is the one you're going to use to super heal your people. You're going to be casting this not a lot, but enough to keep them alive. You don't want to spam heal with this. You just want to cast it and such. So what it does is beacon of light, or beacon your inner light, healing yourself or a wounded ally in front of you for X amount. It also heals one other injured person for a smaller amount, and these can critically heal. So this is a really good, oh crap heal. Moving on to our next ability, we have Extended Ritual. Now the nice thing about Extended Ritual is how it works. Exalt your sacred light of the Aedra, cleansing up to 5 negative effects from yourself immediately and healing you and nearby allies for 3,100 health every 2 seconds for 24 seconds. It's a great area effect heal. It's also a synergy, which somebody can use to the Purify synergy, cleansing all harmful effects and healing them for X amount of health. And this ability scales off your highest offensive stats, so it does scale off your weapon and spell damage, or your weapon damage and your max stamina. Not your spell damage and max magicka. Next up, we have our Quick Cloak. This is how we're going to keep the buffs, the buff and debuff on our weapons applied to us throughout the fight. Basically, when you cast this, you're going to give yourself major evasion for 14 seconds. This is going to allow you to be very mobile and move around the fight really well. On top of that, every 2 seconds, the shrapnel will pulse, dealing X amount of physical damage to all enemies within 5 meters. And you also gain Major Expedition for 4 seconds, increasing your movement speed by another 30%. So you get a lot of, quick movement bursts. And this makes you a very mobile person. So it allows you to be in and out of damage areas really well. It allows you to be in the fight, but also be able to move out of the area to heal if you need to. There's a lot of things that this does, and it does it really well. Next up, we have Channeled Focus, and this is your resistance buff. So for 25 seconds, you will get a buff to your spell and physical resistance by 5,948. You also recover 242 magicka every second over the duration, and then Standing in the Ruin heals you for so much health every second, which scales off your max health. That's why it's better to use a tri-stat with this, because it makes the healing better for you, and it basically just allows you to take hits and then recover those hits quicker. So this is why you can stay with your group instead of standing back and using a resto staff. You can stay with them and you can stay in the fight better, all that stuff, because you're going to get a really good, decent resistance. You get that really good mobility and everything else. It just, across the board, this build is just incredibly good for playing in those small group environments. Next up, we do have the Radiant Aura again, and this is to give us that minor fortitude, minor endurance, and minor intellect. And I would suggest casting it from the back bar instead of the front bar, because you get it for 20 seconds, that magicka steal. And like I said, any enemy hit, it doesn't matter. So if you have a bunch of ads that come in a boss fight, you can recast this. They get applied that. Your magicka DPS can focus on them. They're going to get magicka back. Your tank can chain them, pull them in, and they're going to get magicka back while they're doing this. And anytime they hit them with the, heroic slash or whatever, they're going to get magicka back. This is going to allow them to chain more enemies in, things like that. If it's magicka based, if they're using the stamina version, you've got the stamina covered because your monster set also gives resources back. So really good for that kind of thing. Now, Final ability we have is Aggressive Horn. Now this is pretty much essential to most tanks and healers are going to run this skill. And this is also one that you get from the Assault Warline, the ultimate. So you do have to unlock Caltrops before you will unlock Aggressive Horn. But once you have Aggressive Horn, I think you have to unlock Caltrops to get it. But once you have Aggressive Horn, this is such a powerful skill for your group. It increases everybody's max magic and stamina by 10% for 30 seconds. It also grants you major force, increasing your critical damage by 20% for 20 seconds. Now remember, you can only take your crit damage to 125%. So you will be over the crit chance, but that's fine. You're going to be at the 125% crit for 10 seconds. So that means your critical damage is going to be really high, not your critical healing. So that's really, really good for that. And that's pretty much it for all the skills and abilities. Passive-wise, racially, the Khajiit is phenomenal for this. And I say that not to be like say that other races can't do it. But the reason I said they're phenomenal is because it's literally built into their who they are. You get the robustness, which increases your health recovery and your magic and stamina recovery. You get the lunar blessing, which increases increases all health, magic, and stamina by 915. And then you have the feline ambush, which increases your critical damage and critical healing by 12%, and it decreases your stealth detection by 3 meters. We're not worried about that. We're worried about the critical damage and healing. So overall, this build is perfect for the way it's designed, the way it applies the extra bonuses to your resources with Warhorn, and then gives you those resources back through the monster set and then through the Lamia's Song whenever you use an ultimate. And when you look at ultimate costs, especially on the Templar, even if you want to use Empowering Sweeps, which is a really powerful ability, it costs 71 ultimate, you can give your group 1,000 stamina back and magicka back every 71 ultimate. If you want to use the Restoring Light Remembrance, it's 118 ultimate, and it's a super powerful heal. It's going to give you major protection, reducing your damage taken by 10%. And then while you cannot move, channeling, you gain immunity to all disabling effects. So not only do you get that 3,300 resistance for both spell and physical, but you also get this 10% major protection, and you get that heal over time, and it costs 118 ultimate, which is going to give your group almost 2,000, or over 2,000 stamina and magicka back. So either any of the ultimates you decide to use, even if you want to use the dual wield ultimate, Rend, it's 142 ultimate. If you wanted to use say the Alliance War support skill, Reviving Barrier, it's 237 ultimate. No matter what you do, you're going to be healing and giving resources back, and it gets better. So let's talk about champion points. With the champion points, Green Tree, pretty much standard of what most people run. Treasure Hunter, Rationer, Liquid Efficiency, and Steed's Blessing. These are going to help you out a lot more when you're playing in group content. Blue Tree, we're going with Focus Mending. This is going to increase your single target healing done by 10%. Swift Renewal, which is going to increase your healing over time by 10%. And Soothing Tide, which is going to increase your area of effect healing by 10%. And then last but not least, and this is almost critical to this, is Salve of Renewal. Whenever you remove a harmful effect from yourself or an ally, you sanctify the ground beneath them and heal them and allies within 8 meters for 1,400 health per stage, total of 6,400 health, and this can happen every 10 seconds. You get hit by a lot of negative effects in dungeons. When you use your Ritual of Retribution or your extended ritual, you put down an AoE that cleanses you of 5 negative effects. That means you're going to be able to heal, get an extra bonus heal when you use that for your group. So it doesn't only make you have single target heals, it makes you have AoE burst heals. Really cool. Now moving on to the red tree, we have rejuvenation. This just gives you extra 90 health, magic, and stamina recovery. This plays into being a Khajiit really well. Again, along with the tri-stat recovery and their own tri-recovery. Then we have sustained by suffering. This increases your health, magic, and stamina recovery whenever you're under the effects of a negative effect. You get an extra 150 health, magic, and stamina recovery. This can play to your advantages with sustaining and cleansing and all that stuff. Then we have Slippery. This one just basically allows you to break free at no cost, and it can happen every 21 seconds. And then last but not least, we have Spirit Mastery. This decreases the time it takes you to resurrect an ally by 33%. Now, I do want to talk about a few other passives, which are good to get in both the blue and the red tree. In the yellow or the blue tree, and under the red star here, you want to get this passive. It is very important you fill it out. I know it doesn't seem like much, but it helps. 2% healing done. You also want to fill in these passives over here, which increase your offensive penetration per stage up to 700. They also increase your chance to apply magical status effects and increase your weapon and spell damage to magic attacks by 100 and your physical attacks by 100. And then the same thing with Battle Mastery, increases your chance to apply martial status effects by 30% or 60% in this case. And same thing here. You want to fill this in. This is going to help you out and your group out a lot. When it comes to the Staving Death, fill in all 3 of these passives. You want them. They're going to help you, again, very much. Also get the Precision and the Max Magicka and Stamina passives. In the red tree, you're going to want to get the Health passive. And the other things that you're going to want to fill in is definitely this. Return to life after resurrection with 5% more resources per stage. So you get 10% more resources when somebody resurrects you. This helps you get back into that sustained stat area so you can use resources immediately to start giving health back to your group and all that stuff. So you want to make sure you have that. Also, some of the other passives like Tumbling reduces your dodge roll cost by 120 stamina per stage, so you get that 240 reduced cost. And get all of the blocking ones, passives, and the one that's in here, the Minor or Nimble Protector. These just help you with block costs and blocking capability and bashing and all that. It helps out. And then this one as well, reduces your break free cost. I wouldn't worry too much about these other passives you see me, or actives you see me unlocked. I would go with the ones that I would suggest you unlock, like the Spirit Mastery, the Rejuvenation, the this one here, and the Survivor's Insight. I would get this one, especially it reduces the duration of status effects applied to you by 25%. But to get the Sustained by Suffering, I would unlock all the passives I could. The reason for this is it's going to play into your character better in the long run. And when it comes to the blue tree or the green tree, like, you can fill in a lot of passives, but you're primarily going to want to fill in a line that takes you up this way, around, or up this way, and then down into these, so you can unlock them quicker. And then worry about filling the rest of it in the way you want it filled in. So, but like I said, this build works really good in overland play. If you're playing by yourself and you're doing content, you can go with the passives from the champion line that give you increased damage, because you're not going to need the increased healing. And if you're playing with a group, it's still good to stay in that increased healing mode, so you get better heals across the board. But as you can see, this build is literally designed to feed resources, heal your group through many means, and just keep your group sustained. That's what it's designed to do. And that's why it works so good. Now, I know a lot of people will be like, would it work in trials? Yes, it could work in trials, but you would have to make some major adjustments to it to make it work really good. Like switching out the 5-piece body set to Olorim would be good. The reason for that, you can give your group major courage, plus you could give them the resources, plus you can do the healing, plus you get the monster set benefits. You get all these different things for your group. But that is pretty much it for the build, guys. This build is so much fun to play. I play this on live. I can tell you from my own experience, there is no healer build that I love more than the New Moon Monk. I have played the Trial Healer. It's fun. It can be okay. You know, I don't like how weak it is when it comes to playing the content unless you change the build. I like this because it can play in both the normal story content. It can play in the dungeons, you know, the public dungeons, the delves. It can fight world bosses. Then you take it into a dungeon and it gets even more better because now you're playing with a group, and that's where this build excels, is playing in a group. So in dungeon runs, normal, veteran, hard mode, it doesn't matter. This build just works so good. Now, I will say in hard mode, it is a little bit more challenging to play this build because you're up front. And in that case, I would suggest moving to an ice staff front bar, back bar resto staff. Works great, does wonders, and you can still get it in the set of the Lamia song. But if you're looking for something that's just overall fun and exciting, this is the way I play it, and I love it. And I can't help myself not to enjoy playing it because it does all these different things so well. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Again, I cannot stress this enough, but I do want to say something else. I want to thank everyone who has supported my channel for the last 6 years. You know, I have to admit that, you know, I look at other content creators and I respect their work. I love their work. A lot of them help me to understand the game more. You know, Asian God, he even though he's gone from the game, his information was so helpful in understanding so much more about the game. Gilliam the Rogue, even though he works for ZeniMax now, his information helped me to understand the game. Deltia, Alcast, Dots Gaming, Zynode, Fangrush, like all these other content creators out there working on the game. Hack the Minotaur, that dude deserves the utmost respect. These people and myself have worked really hard to bring you guys a lot of good stuff. And if you get to see one of their videos, give them a shout out. Say, hey man, like your stuff. You know, even if it's just that. That's all you have to do. That's all I'm asking. Show these guys the same respect that you show me. Even if you don't agree with what they do, they deserve the respect. Because it's people like that that make communities better. And that's pretty much what I have to say there. So, major shout out to all of them, all the other content creators. It doesn't matter who you are. I have respect for your work. Great job. And bro, we got this, man. Namaste, dude. I'm loving your stuff. But that's pretty much it for this video, guys. I hope you guys liked it. I hope you guys liked this build. And if you want to give it a try, I suggest give it a try. You will not. I can't tell you how much fun you'll have, because for me, it's the best build I've ever made. It's the funnest thing I've ever played. Because I love playing support. So, but that's pretty much it for the build video, guys. And as always, you guys know what's coming next. If you like this video, hit that like button. If you guys want to see more videos by me, please subscribe. Helps out the channel grow and everything like that. And if you do subscribe, hit that notification bell to be notified when I post new videos. That not only helps me, it helps you as well. Other than that, thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day. And this guy might see you in game. Bye.